Hi,
Hey,
we
can you
did
hear?
it.
We did it. Can you hear
Yeah,
my background noise at all?
no, no. Hey, Erin, great to see you. Hey, everybody.
No.
That's some fans in the audience, I think. Great to see you. Thanks so much for coming out. I'll give everybody a couple of minutes to join. If you want to tell us where you're coming from tonight, I would love to know. I'm sure everybody else would love to know too. I know we have some Toronto people, some BC people on here. See where else people are from. Welcome to, am I just cutting out here? Hold on. There we go. I'm getting a little beach ball. Okay, I'll
Wait
get
one
going.
sec. For some
Yeah,
reason, I can't see myself. Oh wait, there we go.
okay. Yeah, it's just it's giving me a little spinny. It's possible that the connection needs a sec. So we've got Chilliwack, BC, and I know we have Toronto on there. Utah, hello, welcome. Love to see it. I'll let Cindy rejoin, kind of do my spiel here at the beginning, and if she gets disconnected, then she can come back on. Welcome to another buyer seller hotline. We chat about hot topics in the vintage and secondhand world by bringing buyers and sellers together to better understand each other, talk about ideas, that kind of thing. I'm Kristina from the Vintage Seeker, and today we are talking about getting to know your local market scene, how they support local economies, how they bring people together, and the behind the scenes of running one. My lovely guest tonight, and I think she's still having some connection issues, we'll figure it out in a sec. She is Cindy, I'll re-invite her here. From Toronto, I have a curling brand. I want to join the pop-up, but how do I do that? Okay, Cindy can definitely answer that for you. Let me just make sure that we can re-invite her here. Do, do, do. Freestyling with the fun technology. We got
I'm
you.
so
Okay.
sorry.
No,
I'm
it's
so
all good.
sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's Instagram. It's not your fault. Just before I continue on my little intro spiel, somebody asked, I don't want to forget, so I want to come back to this. Somebody says, I'm from Toronto and I want to join the pop up. How do I do that? So we'll come back to that. I just want to make sure that we come back to that. So, lovely guest tonight is Cindy Chau, founder of the Welcome Market in Toronto. And the Welcome Market is a very vibrant event series here in town, brings together vintage and handmade vendors in a very inclusive and community driven space. Cindy's going to share what it's like to build a market and how buyers can get the most out of attending one, and then tips for vendors as well. So if this is your first time joining us, this isn't just a conversation between Cindy and me. It's one where everybody can participate, and I encourage you to do that. If you're a buyer, ask your questions about markets in the comments. Tell us about your favorite ones and share your own market experiences. And if you're a vendor, tell us about what works for you, what challenges you've had, and you can chime in with your best tips for working with market organizers as well. Okay, so before we get into Cindy's story, I will just do my own little quick intro. I'm Kristina Urquhart, publisher of The Vintage Seeker, independent media platform that helps secondhand and vintage vendors reach shoppers. I've also been a business editor for about 20, just under 20 years now, creating content for niche communities. I am not a vendor myself, but I've created this platform that kind of shouts them out and tells buyers about what they do. So you can find Instagram. You can find the Vintage Seeker here on Instagram and Facebook, of course, but also on my website where there are ongoing resources, free newsletters, an events calendar, downloads, that kind of thing. I also run the free to search and free to list Shop Secondhand Directory, which lists more than 3,500 vintage and secondhand shops and services across North America. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's a good tool to find vintage and antique shops online and offline, as well as related services and markets. And vendors and market organizers, you can also list your businesses there yourselves. I've also recently relaunched our memberships with new ways for consumers to participate and to get perks and support our work, and also for vendors and organizations to get promotional opportunities for their businesses, access resources, community support, all that good stuff. And I also offer one-on-one consultations on, uh, hold on, we're just going to get Cindy back here, having some technical difficulties. I also offer consultations on everything from content to promotion to marketing and customer experience. It's all good. I had lots to say at the beginning anyways.
I honestly don't know what, like, I don't know what's happening. I was live, I'm not touching anything, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden it just stopped working. So I
Yeah.
really hope it doesn't happen again.
It's the internet, I'm sure. It's
Oh.
I'm on a particular Rogers company. If it's them, then it's must not be yours because
No, it could honestly, it could be mine. I mean, you've done a few lives, so it honestly
yeah.
could be my
It's
fault. So
this is the perils of doing something like this. We're good. If we continue to have problems, we'll do it another time. But
okay.
for now, we're coming to you now. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm really excited that you are here. And if you're just joining us, I said off the top, but Cindy is a market organizer, a founder of a market series here in Toronto called the Welcome Market. She also started as a vintage decor seller running her shop Finders Keepers and transitioned into, I would say, a powerhouse in the local community with the Welcome Market in 2021. So, Cindy, welcome. Tell us about
Thank you.
you and the Welcome Market and everything you've been up to.
Okay, yeah. So, my name's Cindy's. I started Finders Keepers back in, I believe it was 2020 to 2021. It was kind of my during pandemic side hustle. So I've always been an avid lover for, thrifting, especially vintage decor and just like kitschy items. And so I kind of started off as a vendor myself at a few of these markets. And then come October 2021 is kind of when things kind of started with the Welcome Market. And um, I guess like in my personal experience, I felt like there wasn't a space where I kind of fit. There were a few markets that either specialize in artisan or vintage, but there wasn't really a place that integrated both while focusing on BIPOC businesses. And so, with that need in the city, luckily I had a few other small business folks that kind of felt that way. And so we kind of started with a or a 6-person Halloween market, and now it's gone to the Welcome Market, and here we are. So I believe we've hosted over 300 small businesses and done. I don't even know how many markets, but I'm honestly so blessed for this community, and I'm happy that I was able to find um, my passion.
Yeah. And you're now up to like 35, 40 vendors, right? On average.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So tell us for people who aren't local, tell us about the vibe. What is it like?
Yeah, I mean, we like to provide a bit of an experience, so not just a market, but either ways where you can well, usually we'll have a bit of like a bar, or we had a stamp station, a photo booth area. So we want to kind of create not just a curated retail experience, but kind of like a curated experience in general to kind of give people a reason to shop not only local, but in person as well. And just
Mhm.
an experience that shopping online can't do.
Yeah, I agree. That connection is really important. Tell
Yeah.
people where they can find you online, though. I know it's an in-person event, but just so that
Yeah.
people know where to find you.
So you can find me at the.welcome.market on Instagram. We also have a TikTok, I think same handle. Um, and we do have a website, but usually if you want to catch me, you kind of have to use my Instagram. But
Yeah.
yes, we're kind of on those two fronts.
Yeah, you do a really great job on TikTok for any TikTok users out there. It's really fun.
I'm
Um,
trying. It's
yeah, I
hard.
was checking it before this call and I was cracking up a number of times. Good audios, good audios. Um, so you saw a gap when you first started in the kind of local market scene. Would love to talk a little bit more about that experience for you as a vendor who didn't feel like they had a place, and how you feel like the welcome market encapsulates that now.
Yeah, I think I felt like there was a bit of a barrier to entry. A few of the very popular markets, they kind of had, their own curated or people that have been, veterans of the business that, always had a spot at the market. And so I feel like with the welcome market, it created um an easier access to entry, I would say. So, I curated it with a mix of, folks that I knew that have never done a market before or new to markets. And that's kind of where we started. And so I want people to understand that it's not just like a place where, we'll always have the same, small businesses participating, that we do, want to encourage to have more vendors and new vendors, and just as an opportunity to get their foot in the door with the market scene in Toronto.
Right. So how, like on average, how many people are repeat vendors from month to month? Like,
I would say possibly 10. And this
okay.
is, I think it all kind of depends, right? So there's like a few that try to get into other markets that can't, and so then, they get into mine. And so like usually I feel a bit of guilt there if they can't get into other markets and they
Yeah.
ask me to participate. So there's definitely um, you know, an a problem that I have to deal with, but not in a bad way. But yeah,
Yeah.
we do have a mix of repeat vendors, and I think it's a testament to also like their hard work as well. And if they're able to provide a business or a service that I haven't seen, with any other small businesses or at any other market, then and if they apply, then they'll have a spot.
Yeah, that's a great thing. I mean, yeah, I think that a lot of people probably don't know that as a shopper when you're coming to a market. So some of these more established ones that it is kind of often like the spots are given to the people who've been there before, and that, makes sense to some degree
Mhm.
because it's been successful in the past and like those
Exactly.
people want that spot. But it's kind of nice that you flipped it on its head a little bit with this particular series. One of the things that you do is create themed markets. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because it's kind of, I think, special for this space, at least locally here. I'm sure there's other cities that are doing stuff like this, but
Yeah.
at least here it's different.
Yeah, I think I'm happy that, something that I thought was just a niche or something that I wanted ended up kind of being a place that everyone, or just like my themed markets, they were initially kind of just like a passion of mine. And I'm like, you know what? I love a Halloween theme. I love a holiday theme. I love a Valentine's Day. Let's see if it's successful. And luckily they have been. I think a lot of people love a good theme. They love a good novelty and like a reason to kind of, either gift something for that specific holiday. Um, and now, especially, we've added our Asian Heritage Month event and market that we do every year now, which again is amazing. The fact that, people felt like there was a need in the city that, a market or event wasn't kind of filling during the time. And now, people come to the Welcome Market for these themed markets is honestly um, amazing. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, you just did one too that was like more of a collaboration with another festival, right? It was like a food thing.
is Feasty.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think I'm so happy to do the welcome market because I get to kind of do all these different collaborations.
Hmm.
And so Evelyn from Feasty, who also runs a few other successful businesses, as a fellow BIPOC woman that runs, a small business in Toronto, reached out and asked if I wanted to be a part of her sip sip and snack festival, and it was their
Hmm.
second year. And I would definitely would say like this has been quite a successful festival, so honestly kudos to Evelyn if she's watching. But yeah, I love being able to work with other like-minded entrepreneurs and other small businesses in the city. It's one of the perks of running the Welcome Market.
Yeah. Well, and it's exposing your vintage and handmade vendors to a whole audience of people who may have never ever come to your market any other time, right? Like it's
Yes.
people who are coming for this food and then having this sort of pop up of sorts of your market there is,
Hmm.
or some of your vendors is a great idea. So you have that handmade and vintage mix that I think is important to draw people in. Why is that important to you?
I think for me, I wanted to also be a one-stop shop. Like, and I think being able to provide a space where a lot of entrepreneurs sometimes they kind of do both. Either they sell vintage and curated goods, and maybe they didn't find a spot that they classified in. I know there's specific rules for art, artisan markets and art shows where, vintage may not be accepted, vice versa. And so for me, it was important because as a shopper myself, I wanted a place that kind of did both. Um, you know, and just to provide other avenues for small businesses to have a place.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's a nice place to go to be able to touch things and feel things. And if you're more of an artisan type of market shopper, to be at an event where there is vintage can introduce you to it. And of course, vice versa, right? I mean,
And even
sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
and like you kind of said, if someone was going to my market, let's say just shopping specifically artisan, but then they see a really nice Y2K dress or skirt that they weren't particularly looking for, but
Mhm.
ended up finding at the market, then again, it kind of creates another avenue for new customers that, you know, weren't intending on, shopping vintage, but now have an avenue to do so.
Yeah, had a chance. I mean, I think there's a lot of crossover as well between the communities. I mean, obviously, in general, I mean, Etsy is like a vintage and handmade place, and they exist in the same spaces, but I think more just the fact that they're both small business owners. There's often kind of like a sustainable element. There's like a slow element often. I mean, people are that are creating things often care about the things that they're bringing in to use and make those creations, and that sense of individuality, I think, is something that really binds them together. And
Yeah, of
it's a good
course.
fit. Yeah. Um, your name is welcome. You talked a little bit about this already. But I'd like to just come back to it, like intentionally creating this environment where not just the vendors feel welcome, but the buyers too. How do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's creating a space that, and I think it's a testament to the small business community. I think one of the most important feedback that I've been getting time and time again is that, wow, the vendors are so nice.
Mm,
And I think um, you know, I'm happy that everyone that I work with is so passionate about what they do, and they're always excited to meet a new customer, engage with a new customer, helping any customers if they have any questions, things like that. So I think one of the reasons is definitely the vendors that we've curated. Second is also being able to provide, like, because our welcome market is on the main floor, welcoming as well in terms of an accessibility point of view. So we do have an accessible entrance on Shaw. So um, making sure that we're not excluding anybody. And then
mm,
we usually have our market near Queen and Shaw, so welcoming in terms of ease of access. So
mm,
I try to make it as convenient as possible for folks to come shop, whether it's on their way to Trinity Bellwoods or going to Ossington to get a bite to eat or something like that. We're in a central spot, so
mhm.
um,
Yeah, it's
that
very well located, very well located. I'd
Mhm.
love to know for the people who are on the call if there's, something that makes you as a buyer, even if you're a vendor, I'm sure go to markets. What makes you feel like you're welcome and like you love being at a market? I'd love to hear from people who are with us. I want to come back to the opportunities that you've created for AAPI vendors in particular. I mean, we've talked about BIPOC vendors, but you have done this Asian themed markets for Asian Heritage Month. It's been 2, 3 years now. How many years that you've been doing it?
I think this is our third year, actually. Yes,
Yeah,
our third year.
I would love to hear about the feedback you've gotten from that because I mean it's super important and there's not anything like it in the city.
Yeah, honestly, it's such a whirlwind. So initially, we started it back in May during Asian Heritage Month, and I've created a relationship with Evelyn, or not, sorry, not Madeline Chung, who is the founder of Represent Asian Project. And if for those who aren't aware of Represent Asian Project, they are a social media um, account that highlights a lot of, current social and economic issues in the AAPI community, as well as highlighting a lot of AAPI talent, whether it's Canada and in the States, kind of everywhere. And so, because they're located in Toronto, we collaborated on our first ever Asian Heritage Month event back in May 2022, back at Home Court near Ossington. And ever since then, it was like kind of like it was I was so happy that I did it because, again, the turnout was incredible. I initially kind of did it as kind of as a love letter to my parents who have always told me to kind of embrace my Asian Vietnamese culture. And so being able to kind of create a little hub of, I believe it was 40 API vendors, and the turnout was just incredible. So we started with a night market, which, kind of goes towards the whole Asian night market feel. Again, the turnout was incredible, amazing success. And then, cut to this year when we were asked by counselor Lily Chang to do one at Mel Lastman Square, which was an incredible feat. But, we had 20,000 people show up. We had, close to 100 vendors, which is honestly crazy. But again, the success is just a testament to the people that want to just shop local and support their local community. And honestly, it's amazing. I
Yeah,
do
I
it
love
again.
hearing you talk about it and light up about it. It's really awesome. Her name is Red, commented that she likes the bubbles that you have out front. Sets a fun vibe upon entry. For those who don't know about Welcome Market, can you talk about the bubbles for a sec?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an amazing element for sure. I totally forgot about that. But usually in the summer, spring, we'll have like a bubble machine at our entrance just to kind of encourage people to come in. The dogs love it, the kids love it, everybody loves bubbles.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. So any potential market organizers on the call, fun idea if you're hosting one. Um, Getting their foot in the door, I think for these vendors, you talked a little bit about giving people a chance.
Hmm.
You talk a little bit more about like kind of the, I guess, emotional response that you get from doing that. Like when somebody gets accepted to your market and maybe they haven't sold before or, they're a new vendor.
Yes. Sorry,
Oh, that's okay. Hi.
she wants to go.
She wants to come in.
She wants to go.
Love
Excuse
it.
me.
It's the
Um,
work-life balance.
what was your question again? I'm sorry.
The emotional response that you get from people who have been accepted to vend for the first time.
Oh, I think they feel, I think a sense of relief, I think, you hear so many stories of, I've been trying for a few months, or, I didn't get accepted to this market, or, whichever market. So I think they feel excited to be able to kind of present their small business to a larger community. I think a lot of people will, start to kind of plan a little bit. Okay, like if this is my first time, how do I want to represent my business? So I think there's excitement there, there's nervousness there, but definitely a sense of relief. I think there isn't even I know there's a lot of markets in Toronto, but still feel like there isn't enough. We have a wait list of 3,000 small businesses that want to participate, and I wish I had a large enough space to accommodate everybody, but we're stuck to a space that only allows 35 small businesses, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, but I mean, it also speaks to the thing that you've created and the opportunity that's there. And I know you're working on getting some of them in, anyways,
Yeah.
with the rotating vendor mix. I mean, seeing that list of 3,000 and knowing what you've done for, more representation in the market scene in terms of the vendors that are given a chance.
Mhm.
What on a larger level would you like to see when it comes to representation at local market level?
I think just I mean twofold, definitely in terms of seeing visually having BIPOC businesses is something that when I started was something that I kind of saw straight off the bat. And I think, as a market organizer, that's something that I usually try to have an emphasis on. I think because, unfortunately there are some organizers that that aren't BIPOC, so it's not on their, it's not their, I guess, like first thought. And so I think coming from it from a person of color, being able to kind of see that in terms of diversity, and then the amount the variety of vendors as well. So there are countless of jewelry vendors, but unfortunately, for everyone to have success, we kind of have to see what they do and how it stands out from other jewelry businesses, so that as a shopper, when you're coming into it, you're not saying, oh, I've seen this stuff already, or this vendor also has something similar. So being able to provide a variety of goods and services, so
Mhm.
that um, shoppers have a variety to choose from.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think something you mentioned earlier about the way that some markets tend to work where like the previous vendors get the shot first, right? Like that can stymie the flow of new people and new representation coming in if there's always kind of like the same people that are there or the old guard, if you will.
Yeah.
I think there was a couple other things I wanted to mention on this one. Just another thing I like to see, and I know that some market organizers do this. I don't know if you do, but um, sliding scales for booth fees sometimes if there's somebody who like is brand new and they can't make it work, kind of lowering the barrier to entry for a market is another, I think, thing that is done in some instances that I think is a nice way to get some representation too.
Yeah, I think,
Mhm.
unfortunately, we do kind of keep the fees kind of fixed, but we do provide different size options. And for anyone that is having a bit of a financial issue, more often than not, they kind of send us an email to say, hey, is it possible to do 50% now and
Yeah.
50% after the market? That's something that we're more than happy to accommodate. And I think the reason why we don't provide a sliding scale, I think, is to keep the playing field the same,
Hmm.
throughout the market. Unfortunately, everyone is kind of in the same situation in
Yeah.
terms of like an economic point of view. I know, it's hard times out here, but we've been keeping the vendor fee as low as possible, and even from the start, we've only raised our fee by $5.
Yeah, that's very low. That's not a high increase at all. Um, what else did I want to mention on this one? Yeah, I think funding opportunities. I don't know if you get funding locally, but I think that's another thing that's always we're starved for in terms of the small business community in general, but just trying to get more action from our local communities because you're driving a lot of a lot of revenue. You're driving a lot of business.
Yeah, I think, luckily I kind of come from a project management background. I used to work at a marketing agency, so I've learned, with my experience, that partnerships and sponsorships are kind of huge to kind of set yourself apart from, either other businesses similar.
Hmm.
And so I think the Asian Heritage Month that we just did, a few months ago at my last Miss Square really did push me for partnerships. And so luckily, I haven't done any grants yet, but I've been told I should be doing grants. But luckily, we've reached out to other businesses, whether it's, Owner, Interact, Sakoshi Mart, um, even having beverage companies as a sponsor, things like that. We're always kind of pitching ourselves just to
Yeah.
make sure, we're providing either a different experience or, kind of like a low cost to entry. So for example, with our Asian Heritage Month market, we were able to kind of raise $10,000, luckily, or I think it was $15,000, but it helped cover the tent rental, power, things like that, just so that we can keep our fee low for all the vendors. And so their vendor fee covered a lot of stuff that they didn't know was free, so it's good.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it just you doing this or do you have help?
I have a colleague, Christina, who's been helping me, which is great. And fun fact for the Asian Heritage Month, it was truly a team of three. So it was me, Christina, and Sonia, all three of us moms, which
Yeah.
was freaking crazy, and we only had 2 months
Uh,
to plan it.
yeah. Lots on the
Yeah,
go. Go getters, right?
it was a lot.
You talked about the economic climate that we're in, and I want to kind of touch on that because, in the pandemic, we saw pretty high spending, I would say. I mean, people didn't have anywhere to go, so they had more money to spend.
Mhm.
And then now we've seen, a lot more caution in terms of the way that people are spending their money. Why do you think that local markets are serving a really important purpose during this kind of high inflation time and kind of recession that we're in that nobody ever calls a recession, but is? clearly wouldn't.
Yeah, I a lot of people are saying, recession indicator,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
for two
I
years.
like
So,
we're in one. I think especially when it comes to pop-up spaces, there isn't a lot of, I mean, I guess like just Toronto alone, even renting or leasing a small pop like a small space for your business to pop up in is no small feat. So what's great about markets like this, it again provides them an opportunity to meet their customers in person, but by only, a small fee, I
mhm,
would say, compared to, let's say, renting a place or leasing a place for a year or three,
mhm,
4 years, right? I've heard so many stories of businesses that either had to close down because the overhead of actually having a brick and mortar or retail space is, it's a lot, right?
yeah,
So with a lot of these pop-up markets, whether it's farmers markets, things like that, it provides, a low cost way for them to pop up, especially with the local market, a high traffic area like Queen Street without having
mhm,
such a high overhead. So I think economically it makes sense for small businesses.
yeah,
And even just for shoppers too, I think in this economic climate, it's just so easy for us to kind of rely on fast fashion and just rely on the most convenient option, whether it's shopping on Amazon or just buying something from the dollar store or just whatever. Obviously, not everyone can afford to do so, which I totally understand. But with the market, it provides a bit of ease of convenience so that they feel the need to kind of, support their local um, economy, because
mhm,
if they don't, then there isn't so much
yeah.
anymore. Or like, we just don't want to see Queen Street turning into just a bunch of, big shops.
Yeah, exactly. Chain
Yeah.
stores. For those who aren't in Toronto, Queen Street's
Yes,
like our
chain
main
stores.
shopping drag with lots of cool independent boutiques and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I think it probably is easy for a person to feel right now that a local market might be out of their range, out of their budget, but
Hmm.
from what I've seen, there's a big range of stuff at a market. I mean, you can get stuff for very little depending on what it is. You know, there's at your market, there's lots of cute handmade vendors selling like little fun items that just give you that little dopamine hit. You know, instead of turning to your Amazon or your Shein or your Temu or all the business names that I don't like saying on here, but that I seem to talk about every single time.
No, I totally get it. Even same with, when people say, oh, like buying a tank top from H&M, but there's so many, vintage vendors that will either have like a $5 clothing bin or $10 bin that will have something similar, if not better.
Yeah.
And then same with, things like candles that, whether they're a tapered candle, $5 at the
Mhm.
local market from, let's say, someone like Moonwix, or,
Yeah.
you just I think being able to actually see the amount that a small business can offer and at different price points also
Mhm.
kind of helps make it less intimidating to shop local.
Yeah, yeah. It's also just like a great place to hang out and connect, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a fun time. It's like gets us away from these little these little screens. Unless you're filming at the market, of course. But I think it's, you know, more than ever right now, like we're exposed to so much stuff on online, all this stuff. So it's great to go in person and talk. And when things are feeling hard and tough, it's nice to just hang out with people in the same
Yeah, and,
space.
and and some people have definitely said going to markets have been like inspiring for them.
Mm.
you know
Hmm.
a lot of times they'll just be like, I didn't think that my passion project would turn into like a small business, and they're like being able to like talk to other small businesses that are like, you can do it too, like I
Yeah.
just started last year, I'm doing a market, X, Y, and Z. And I think it's definitely an inspiring place too for those that you know are interested and want to be a part of this community.
Yeah. For the people on the call, if you have things that you love about markets and you want to drop them in the comments, let us know. And we would love to hear about it. Um, this this year, um, we've had issues with you know, tariffs. We've had a support local movement. What have you been hearing from customers this year? Are buyers becoming more intentional about shopping this way?
Oh, 100%. I think, even just from TikTok alone, like, people aren't doing like Shein hauls anymore, or like, Temu hauls. I don't know if that's a thing, but I know Shein hauls was a thing. But,
Yeah,
now a lot of the times you see people like, this is what I found at the market, or this is what I found at a thrift store. So I think a lot of people are now finding things that last long versus is cheap and, easy to buy. So
mhm.
I think there's definitely a shift, but I feel like that shift has been happening, for the past few years, which is great. There's definitely like, whether you're going to hippie market or offline market or this market, you definitely see people that come to shop vintage. So you
Yeah,
definitely see a change in that.
yeah. I don't want to miss this comment, but somebody commented Cindy's the best, so I just wanted to make sure you saw that. Uh, yeah, I mean, I think, people are collectively, more aware of what's going on in terms of the impact of um, that Shein Hall life on our
Yeah.
planet. It's pretty hard to ignore, like when the weather's changing and it's very obvious, So I think those
Yeah,
decisions are being made more often.
and like things that, Netflix, for example, they had, a fast fashion documentary that came out. And when
Mhm.
people kind of just start to see what these landfills look like, or what these third world countries look like when, all of our garbage or all of our leftover clothing just gets, piled onto them. And so I think people are starting to, come to terms to what those kind of hauls and what those things look like.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's also just great to know where your money's going right now, right? Like it's that connection, whether you're shopping online or offline, but when you're shopping with a small business, you know that that money is staying. I mean, it's 66 cents on the dollar in Canada stays
Mhm.
with when you spend at a local business. 66 cents stays in the local economy, and in the States, it's 67. So it's a really big impact. Whereas if you shop at a big multinational retailer, it's 11 cents that stays in your local economy. So it's
Wow.
quite a big difference. Yeah. Hey, clotheslines, love this convo. Markets are my happy place. Yes. Candace is always at a great market here around the GTA. Um, I would like to talk a little bit more about the buyer experience at markets. So, what are your kind of tips? What should buyers keep in mind when they are attending a local market?
Yeah, I think one of my tips, I think first and foremost is kind of use, if you're going to, the welcome market for the first time, I would definitely suggest kind of going on our Instagram. One thing that I love to do is provide a vendor list. So the vendor list will be a post that we'll have to kind of highlight all the businesses that are there. Then that way you kind of do a bit of your research before, because as someone who's never been to a market, it can be very overwhelming
Mhm.
having, essentially 35 businesses to explore in one place is very intimidating. So being able to kind of leverage social media to your benefit, look at which vendors are there so that you can kind of um, know who to kind of go towards. And then that way you can kind of prepare your wallet as well.
Yeah.
And also just to keep an open mind. You never know what you're going to find at a market. So kind of keeping an open mind. Um, Also anticipate staying longer than you expect. But yeah, I think those are
I'm
my
almost like, I
my
can get this done in 2 hours. And then I'm like talking to every vendor, and it's like 4 hours later. Um, yeah, no, I think that's a great tip. Seeing the list on social media, but also then like the ones that you're interested in, following them and seeing what they're up to at the market. I think also arriving. There's always two schools of thought, like arriving early versus staying late. Like, because if you arrive
yeah.
early, you'll get the coolest stuff. But at least on the vintage side, I don't know if this is the case with handmade, but at least on the vintage side, like if you're there towards the end, you might be able to get something for a little less if you're kind about it. um, yeah, I mean the markets, like Cindy said, she's got vendor lists. You're posting sneak peeks a lot of the time. I mean on TikTok, it's a good place to like see what's going to happen at the market. So that's another thing to do. If anybody else has tips for buyers, what about when it comes to actually being in a vendor booth?
Like as a shopper or
as a
as
shopper? Like what is like good etiquette?
I think saying hi, but I guess that also comes, same goes for a vendor. I always encourage people to say hi. Even, myself, I end up being the greeter at a good chunk of the markets. I always just say hi, welcome, and that that just has kind of become my etiquette. But just being able to, get ready to kind of ask questions or being able to just have um be open to kind of either hearing a story, especially when it comes to ceramics, for example. They may have a particular concept or a story behind every
Mhm.
piece, to kind of, create that story, and also just being able to kind of know what you're buying. Um, yeah, so I think the etiquette is just, and also I think physically, you don't have to touch everything.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I think there's a few things that are a little bit delicate, like
Yeah.
a blouse or a candle that if someone breaks it, either they don't say sorry and they just leave it. But
Right, right.
um yeah, I think keeping an open mind, getting ready to actually talk to these artists, because they're there for a reason. They want to be able to
Mhm.
engage with you too. If they weren't, then they would just sell online. But everyone's pretty much encouraged to kind of talk to customers. So
Yeah.
as an etiquette, just being open.
Yeah, yeah. And ask questions. I think it's always a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah, I think there's like two types of buyers, the people who touch a lot and then the people who like literally won't touch anything because they're afraid, but would like you don't have to go
Or
that
like
far.
stand too far from the table. I'm like, no, no,
Yeah.
no, like go. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Also, like having conversations at the front of the booth, usually like try to take it either right inside the booth just so that other people can get
Oh,
in. Always a good one, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, if anybody's got tips on markets from the shopper perspective, let us know in the comments. What do you wish that more of your attendees or just the people in general knew about what happens behind the scenes of organizing one of these things?
Oh God. I think um I guess there's more work than I guess people think. I like to think I'm a bit of an organized person, so for every market I have a spreadsheet, whether it's, labeling what everyone has, downloading images to post them on social media, the floor plan and curating the floor plan. I think a lot of people just think people are just put in specific spots, but having done my research for all of the vendors that are participating in that particular weekend and knowing what products that they sell, I usually try to curate the floor plan so it seems a little bit cohesive and
Mhm.
it doesn't seem repeated. Um, so like little things like that. Also, running a space, a lot of people don't realize that the organizer does all the cleaning as well. Like I don't hire a cleaning crew, I do all the cleaning. So if you
Yeah.
end up you know making a mess in the bathroom or clogging the toilet in the bathroom, it's me. I have to do
No.
it. But yeah, I think like a lot of admin work and social media plays such a big part in the
Mhm.
success of a market as well. So a lot of work happens through social media. So like I unfortunately with my job I'm constantly scrolling because I'm trying to find a particular trend that works, one that
Mhm.
will hopefully go viral or like people
Yeah.
will kind of resonate with it. So a lot of work goes through social media.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And like, if the people who are here now on the call, if you didn't hear it earlier, is Cindy's on here on Instagram, obviously, but also on TikTok, where you're doing a lot of fun, trendy stuff that I think speaks to your demographic pretty well. What, like, other than scrolling social, I mean, the people who are watching this will follow you, but how do you suggest that people find out what markets are happening in their town? Because sometimes you don't know.
Yeah, there's a few amazing accounts. I think um I mean Vintage Seeker, I mean, you will sometimes post, different markets that are happening, especially the vintage clothing show.
Yeah.
But there's a few different accounts on Instagram. Not at the top of my head. I mean, Curiosity Toronto, To Do Toronto, they're always posting
Mhm.
things that happen throughout the week or weekend.
Mhm.
Um, but nothing comes like I mean, there's a few influencers that come to mind, but I don't have them on the top of
Yeah,
my
no.
head.
But yeah,
But
I
there's a
think that's
few.
a good tip, like finding your local not just necessarily the market itself, but finding the community, the people in your community who sort of report on or tell you what's going on in the city on social media. You can also look off social media. There's like event calendars online. Mine is one of them. There is a calendar of vintage and secondhand events that I have on my website as well. Um, I think we should talk a little bit about what if somebody doesn't buy something? Like, how can they support vendors and markets?
Yeah, I mean, going back to social media, the power of social media goes such a long way.
Hmm.
I think even as small as, on a TikTok, for example. So one thing that I've noticed that, I always encourage people to do at a market is even just taking photos of things that you like. So then on social media, you can say like things that I found at the Welcome Market. You don't have to necessarily buy those things, but you can always just highlight those specific products because you just never know who's going to say, oh, where did where was that, those suede shoes? What was that small business? So
Hmm.
being able to use your social media to kind of show the market and even just like tagging a few of the you know, small businesses that you came
Hmm.
across that you really liked goes a long way. And then following them too, so you can always know where else they're going to be. So even if, let's say, you come across them at the Welcome Market, you're not able to afford their stuff at that time. If you follow them, something happens and you're like, you know what, I'm ready to support this local
Hmm.
business. You can, follow them, see where they're going to be next, and then
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. Vendors always are posting where they're going to be at a market. So,
yeah.
if anybody has like a favorite market here that they want to talk about in the comments, tell us. I'm always curious to hear from people all over where they like to go. I want to turn a little bit to the vending segment for the last few minutes of this call. And talking a little bit about the transition that you did from from being a vintage decor seller into a market organizer, and what was that transition like for you?
Yeah, I think at first I was kind of juggling having to do both. So doing, running my vintage booth, but then also, um, running the market. And I think it ended up being more work than I thought. Sorry. Um, so I think I just wanted to kind of step back with the vintage decor element and just do the markets. And I think I felt more of a, like, I think mentally I felt more fulfilled doing that than the vintage decor.
Hmm.
And so I think I was able to kind of use a lot of the skills that I didn't get to use with the vintage one, whether it was event planning, being able to network with so many incredible folks and like creating a space for them. I think that pivot ended up being somewhat natural because
Hmm.
I ended up just, putting more of my focus there and being like, you know what, I'm just gonna put this on the side. I'm not really focused on it on a social media thing. Like I just
Yeah.
kind of dropped off and then, pivoted.
I think it was the right choice. Yeah, like, I think it was a good choice. Was there something that surprised you? Just thinking about, vendors on this call who maybe have ever toyed with the idea of creating their own market. Was there anything that like kind of shocked you about doing it?
Yeah, at the time, honestly, the price of a pop-up space, and I think
Mm.
anyone that has done a pop-up in Toronto will attest to that. Like nothing is affordable here. And so luckily, with the past few years, I was able to find a place that I was able to lease, which is why a lot of our markets now just happen at Queen and Shaw.
Hmm.
But at the time during the beginning, having to hop from different location to different location to different location, the prices were crazy.
Yeah.
You would be paying something from $8,000 a day or $9,000 for a weekend, and then having to make sure that the fees are low. It's just that is a huge barrier when you're
Hmm.
trying to create your own market, and I think a lot of people can attest to that. And
Yeah.
then I think even just the demand also, I think that ended up being the reason why I pivoted from finders keepers to the welcome market, is once one market was done, everyone kept asking when's the next one, when's the next one, and so like I wanted to meet that demand, which is why I think the pivot ended up being critical because I was trying to meet this the demand of shoppers and the vendors, which is incredible. So yeah, I think that was I think as a market organizer, the cost of places is quite intense, but also just
Mhm.
the amount of small businesses in Toronto. You'd be surprised. There's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, lots of people doing it. Well, and like you said at the beginning, I mean, it's the lower barrier entry for a vendor to come there and not have to have that bricks and mortar space. But at the end of the day,
Mhm.
as the market organizer, you're kind of fronting the space cost. So,
Yes.
having the um, capital to be able to put that up at the beginning or
Mm.
whatever, however you make it work with people paying you for their vendor fees. Seeing it from the other side now, you've been a vendor and you're an organizer. What do you wish that more vendors understood about organizing?
I think um I don't know, like I think if if it looks easy, it's because you don't see the stuff in the back end. I
Mhm.
think like if your experience at the market seems very seamless, just know you know there's a few reasons behind that.
Yeah.
And I think, for for me in particular, I think marketing also it's a community effort. So I always try to encourage people, for anyone that's participating in the market for the first time to also promote it on their Instagram. Like don't just rely on the market to
Mm.
promote the market. You want to ensure that you're hitting the right customers and that your customers are coming to the market. So kind of advertising as a collective. um, what was your question again? I feel like I answered it,
Just,
but I
yeah, that is what do you wish more vendors understood about organizing a market?
I think yeah, there's definitely there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people may not know about, and obviously, I people like to kind of talk about the vendor fees a lot, and unfortunately sometimes it's just the name of the game. Like people don't know the different expenses that happen, whether it's us doing paid advertisements or decorations to get people to come
Mhm.
in, and just kind of the upkeep of the place and things like that. I think I want people to understand that more, and
Mhm.
we're always trying our best when it comes to marketing.
Well, and if you've had to hire somebody, like I imagine your big event that was in the outdoor space in Toronto would have had to have security and stuff. And you've mentioned how expensive it is to actually have that space too. So, if a vendor on the call has a question of a market organizer, now's your chance to ask Cindy before we close off. There was a question right at the beginning. I want to come back to it. I don't know if they're still watching, but they can come back to it. If they are interested in participating in your market in particular, what do they need to do?
So there's a link in our bio that has there's a link in our bio on our Instagram, the welcomemarket.ca. We do have kind of a mailing list. So if we do have a spot that's open, we usually send a vendor application for each market. And I think that's just so that, anyone that's new or if the timing works out, then they can apply to that specific
Mm.
market. So we don't have like a just like one application. It ends up being one that we send out for every particular market. So yeah, check out our link in bio. That's kind of the best. And you can always just shoot us a DM too. And even come visit the market in person. I think that's my number one is to come
Yeah.
to the market. I think a lot of people will either send a message and be like, I want to come, like I want to participate. But then I'll ask them like, oh, have you come to the market? No,
Yeah.
I haven't. But
Yeah.
I'd encourage people to come, you know, see if the vibe and like the other businesses, feel cohesive, I guess,
Yeah.
to your business. And if you feel like your business fits, most likely I'll be there. So come talk to me, things like that. So I think link in bio, come to the market, see it for yourself and see if you fit, and then, talk to me in person. That way, I also get a face behind
Yeah.
the
Face
Instagram
to the
account.
name. It helps. Yeah.
Hmm.
Her name is Red. I have a question for Cindy. What does a successful vendor look like to you? You mentioned advertising as a collective. Any other tips to be as supportive as we can? Love it.
Yeah, I think um also, hi. So she participated in our last market in July. July. Oh my gosh. brain mush. But I think just being, I think successful in terms of, making the most out of it. So being able to
Mhm.
actually talk to other small businesses that are there and kind of opening your network, I think just opens up an avenue to, make new friends, but also an opportunity to collaborate. And so when you meet with other like-minded individuals at a market and not just, just looking at it from I have to make money, obviously that's important, but you also want to make connections. So I think
Mhm.
success can be also through the connections that you've made along the way.
Yeah, I love it. That started to feel like that like TikTok comment trend. The
Yeah.
friends we made along the
I
way.
was I was trying to get there.
I'm so glad I'm with it enough to know the reference. Jack says it was a great market, so that's
Thank
awesome. Love
you.
it.
I mean,
Yeah, I
despite
mean you.
the weather was
Oh, it
intense
was a
that
bad
day.
day. Oh no.
It's okay, so that day it said sunny, and then I think come 10 o'clock, piss piss pouring.
Yeah,
For the
yeah, that's
Yeah.
tough. Yeah, I mean that's a great thing to bring up. I mean, your market's not usually outside. Obviously, you've had some that are outside, but like the fact that the weather does play a factor in people actually leaving their house. If even if it's inside, it might affect the attendance.
Oh, 100% it
Yeah,
does. When
yeah,
when people see it's raining outside, they'll just, look at their window and be like, it's okay, it's not worth it, or something
yeah.
like that. You know what I mean? So the
Yeah.
weather, regardless if you're inside or outside, is definitely a
Always
factor.
yeah, you're always hoping for a good day. Uh yeah, Jackie, thanks and totally agree. Love the connections, meeting kindred spirits. I love to see it. You mentioned collaborating and networking with people. What are some of the great collaborations you've seen between vintage and handmade and how they've been able to work together at markets?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen countless, which is amazing. So I've seen collaborations in terms of sharing a space. So, shout out to Haley and Luna of Haley Made and Moonwix. They found each other at a market, saw that they kind of shared a similar aesthetic, and then now they kind of do this mega booth where they're able to kind of create their own like world. I've also seen collaboration through specific products, and so um going back to Haley Made for one of our Asian Heritage Month met Minnie Wang, which is um, they are a Canadian drag performer, and so Minnie did a collection with Haley Made. So as two Asian artists, they were able to kind of create a collaborative collection together, and this was all through meeting at the market.
Yeah.
Um, and I've also seen, vintage and artists kind of working together. So Alex of Feelings Vintage, for example, worked with Amanda Frost, who, is a graphic designer. She ended up painting on the backs of a few of Alex's vintage jackets. And
Mm,
so seeing these different collaborations is honestly why we do markets. You
yeah.
don't know who you're going to meet. If you see someone that share similarities, then you can either collaborate through specific products, even through contests. So I've seen a day jewelry do a collab giveaway with other vendors, and then you're seeing collaboration that way, because then
Yeah.
you're following the same people and you're creating a different avenue where people can kind of highlight and see your product. So collaboration comes in many forms, which is amazing.
Yeah, I love to see it. I've seen some cool ones, like sometimes when there's like a florist person, maybe it's a dried floral person, they work with somebody who's got vintage vessels like vases and stuff. And
Yeah.
it really helps for the shopper as well to see how you can use these items in situ, right? And
Yeah.
maybe thinking of things in a way that you wouldn't have before. I think we're kind of. I had a question about vendors being better partners to market organizers, and someone asked it, so that's great. Yeah, I think lastly, I just kind of want to end on this idea that I referenced at the beginning of the vending segment that
Mhm.
there are people out there who are maybe looking to do something like this. I think right now, when we're talking about the way that 2025 has changed business, vendors are looking for more ways to create revenue and
Mhm.
offset some lost sales this year, and maybe looking to host markets as an option. So generally for people in this community, other communities, do you have advice for them or kind of like parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think I think going in it for the right reasons. I think, if you're looking for another venue stream or like a another avenue of revenue, I wouldn't say the market is like the best place to, or best way to do it. We've seen things like Next Market, for example,
Mhm.
who created a market because they thought that it would be profitable, but weren't in it for the right reasons. A lot of small businesses, you know, hurt from that because they
Mhm.
ended up not refunding, things like that. Think going in it with the right reasons, I think, is very important. Number two, going into it with creating community. It's not just business. I think a lot of the times people just think, oh, we're providing you a space, here you go. But you want to be able to connect with the people that you're working with and you're
Mhm.
providing space for. So I think, coming into it, every small business, there's a person behind every small business. So being able to connect with people, know why you're creating the market. Are you creating it because you feel like there's a need for this, or do you feel like, you're just creating one just for the sake of creating one? I think, but that kind of speaks to kind of the longevity of a market, is if you're in it for the right reasons, and if you're trying to create something that's different, then therefore, you'll kind of last longer. So I think my parting words of wisdom is go in it for the right reasons, make the connections, and also, if there is um you know if there is like something that you're seeing missing in Toronto that you feel like your market will fit, then that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, or yeah, in Toronto or any community. I think that that's
Any
really great
community.
advice. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's it is all about the connection, and that's what makes these places so special. I always liken it to like the new version of a shopping mall. It's like being able to go to a bunch of stores all at once, but you get to talk to people and find out where your things came from, whether they were made or whether they were found, right? Is there
exactly.
anything that you wanted to talk about tonight that we didn't get to?
I don't think so, but I will plug that our next market, because a few people have been asking, our next one's going to be in September,
Okay.
the 13th to 14th weekend, and we're going to be right across from the Toronto Flower Market. So,
Ooh, exciting.
you
Yes.
know,
For anybody that's local, Toronto Flower Market is a great, great spot. So go to both.
yes.
Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
And also support local. I should
Yes.
also plug
Support,
that.
support
Or else
local.
it's
Yeah,
buy local. I know that sounds really sad, but it's true.
it
You
is true. It
yeah,
doesn't sound sad. I mean, it's a reminder that we always have to, as consumers, remind ourselves of. Like, I mean, like it's very easy, like you said earlier, to just hop on Amazon when you need something, and it sometimes takes more work to shop local, and that's why you have to go find who has it. But it's a lot more rewarding. It's better for your community as well. So, and whether
yes.
that's people who are in person, like at Cindy's Market, but a lot of your vendors are also online, and other people are selling online. They're local to you. The local vintage and handmade scene is quite vast. So
Yes,
there's
and
always somebody to
also,
support.
the money that you're supporting, or the money that you're giving to a small business is going towards making someone's dream coming true, you
Yeah,
know?
I always love that. Yeah, that it means something. Like people, they're always showing a small business owners always showing like when they do a happy dance when they make a sale, but it's like it's literally real.
Yeah.
I think that's a wrap on markets. Thank you so much for this, Cindy.
Thank
This
you
was
so much,
really,
Christina.
really lovely. It was I really appreciated you sharing your insights. I'm sure everybody here and watching later did as well. I am excited to be able to talk about all the amazing work that you've done in the local community here to build up these vendors and to bring buyers and sellers together. It's really quite something special.
Thank you, but
Yeah.
you as well, you've created such a
No,
platform for, the vintage community and, the small business community. It's definitely no small feat. So,
thank
thank
you.
you as well for providing a platform for me to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to see it. Thanks for creating such a vibrant and inviting market, Cindy. Thanks for hosting a great discussion. Thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you
that.
for
Thanks for
watching.
thanks for staying here the whole time.
Yes,
Like I
thank
know
you.
it's like a lot. But yeah, markets connect people. Love to see it. We're all searching for connection right now, I think. So yes, make sure to follow the Welcome Market here on TikTok. And for what's coming up at the Vintage Seeker, we've got always events and resources, memberships, the directory, all at the link in my bio. And thank you so much to everyone for hanging out with us this evening. And if you're watching the replay, let us know what you think in the comments.
Yes,
All right.
please.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye.